Welcome to the first session today, which is all about technology and how we can use it in our businesses, especially in the wineries, because that's what we're dealing with today. We have our panel. We're starting with Brian Saint-Amant, who is the founder of Vinteractive. That's right. And next to him is Mike Wangbickler, who is the president of Balzac Communications. And Chris Denny, who is the president and founder of The Engine is Red in Santa Rosa. Mike's over in Napa, and you're in Windsor. The rest of the information on these people, who have a great deal of things to tell you and a lot of good ideas, is all in the brochure. So if you'd like to read it all there, I am not going to take any more time, and we're going to get started with our first presentation, which is Brian.
All right, thank you. Anyone else get evacuated from the Kincaid fire? Me too. What an experience, huh? It was like living in a dream. Oh, here, I'm supposed to be on mics. There we go. It was like living in a dream with fire-breathing dragons and valiant warriors, right? But it wasn't just first responders that helped us. If you were evacuated, you got news from your neighbors. It was neighbors helping neighbors, right? And we shared news, ideas, and hope. The reason that I mention this is because fire isn't the only threat facing wine country today. According to multiple sources, lower visitor counts and higher competition, more competition, has it's become the new normal, right? And wineries are worried. Sales are slow. Forecasts are down, and there's a sense of alarm that this might not just be a drill. So here's a question. Who's going to protect us? Right? CAL FIRE's not going to protect us from growing competition. So it's up to us. Neighbors helping neighbors. Sharing news, ideas, and hope. And that's why I'm here today, to share with you an idea that I hope will prepare you for the challenges ahead. That idea is automated email marketing. Why automated email marketing? Because automated email marketing will help you grow your direct sales even when visitor counts are down and competition is up. And because it's automated, even the smallest wineries can benefit. Now, I'm not saying that automated email marketing is some kind of silver bullet, but it can be a very useful tool in your fight against growing competition. So in the next 7 minutes, I'm going to try to answer 3 questions. What is automated email marketing? Why does it matter? And how do you put it to work? Does that sound okay? All right. Well, let's jump right in. So, what is automated email marketing? Here are some examples from my inbox. Right? Does anyone else, so if you've purchased anything online, you've probably seen emails that look like this. Does anyone see emails that look like this? Yeah, right? Well, congratulations, you already know what automated email marketing is. Automated email marketing works because it's triggered by customer behavior, personalized based on preferences, and automated for timely delivery using a simple marketing model. The reason it works is automated email marketing cuts through the clutter with relevant messages that are perfectly timed to meet customer interest, right? And in that way, it's a win-win solution. So consumers get what they want, while retailers get what they need. Most of the top retailers in the country already use automated email marketing because it works. For example, did you know that top brands report 30% of their online sales now come from automation? Did you know that top retailers report 6 times more revenue from automated email marketing compared to email blasts? And did you know that 72% of consumers won't even consider marketing messages that aren't customized to their interests? So if you're typically blasting your email list and you're not happy with the results, then now you at least know why. Okay, which is too bad, because the wine industry can really benefit from automated email marketing. Automated email marketing supports every step of the customer life cycle, from customer acquisition to product recommendations. And for the most part, automated email marketing looks exactly the same as the emails that you'd send yourself if you only had the time. The benefits for wineries are threefold: direct sales, business productivity, and competitive advantage. In our work, we've measured 3 to 5 times more wine sales generated by preference-based email marketing compared to standard email blasts. Our friends at ListTrack, they keep track of the top automated sales campaigns each year. And this is in the segment that we're in, right? Look at the top 5 email campaigns. All generate 10 to 100 times more revenue than standard email blasts. And if you look at this list, just a standard automated receipt attached to a simple sales message generate 30 times more revenue than your standard email blasts. And from our VinQuest research, we saw that most wineries using high-frequency email marketing, in the middle part of the screen, they reported $40,000 to $100,000 a year of extra sales. What would your winery do if you could generate $10,000 a year of extra sales, or $40,000 a year or more? What would that mean to your business, right? And because automated email marketing isn't widely used in the wine industry today, it becomes a distinct advantage for anyone who does. That's why automated email marketing matters to the wine industry. So how can your winery benefit? The good news is that new technology makes it more accessible than ever. So you can it's faster, it's easier, and inexpensive than ever. For example, a professionally designed automated email system can be up and running in 10 days or less. Right? And the cost now, with several vendors in this space, it costs as much as a bottle of wine. So how can your winery benefit from automated email marketing? Well, you need a well-integrated solution that links your point of sale systems to your email marketing system. So the first step is to ask some questions, right? Talk to your POS vendor and ask them how they can support you with automated email marketing. Talk to your email marketing provider to see how they can support automated email marketing. And if you're not happy with their answers, then talk to someone who can help, like my colleagues here or on the trade show floor. If you have any questions for me, come on by, visit us at our booth, right? Or online. Or you can, go ahead, take a picture, get my email address. I'm happy to answer your questions. But talk is cheap, right? Actions speak louder than words. So make a list of the good ideas that you learned today. Rank their potential to help your winery. Then please take action to make them happen. Act like there's another threat bearing down on our community. But remember, you're not alone. And that standing together is the way we keep Sonoma strong. Thank you.
It's working? Good. Thanks, Brian. So I'm going to stand up. I don't like standing behind here. So let's take a example scenario of what email marketing looks like, if we may. So the first thing you need is an email address, obviously, for the person you're trying to market to. How are you getting that email address? Often enough times it can be a form from your website. It can be from a customer transaction. Could be at a trade show. So let's take the trade show example. Let's say that you have a booth at a trade show. If you are an exhibitor, the number one objective of any time you're going to a trade show is to collect contacts, right? And hopefully it's to collect good contacts. You want to make sure that you pre-qualify them before you actually put them into your database. But once you have a pre-qualified email address, then what you can do is you can set up a workflow for that. So basically what it is you initiate an email to that person saying, thanks for visiting our booth. Really appreciate it. Here's a little bit of information about us. Would love to set up some time to talk to you. Okay? 2 weeks later, another email goes out. You've already written that email, right? It's not you actually sitting down and writing an email every 2 weeks. You actually perhaps have written a series of 6 emails. And the whole point of automation is that it takes a little time up front to initiate this, but once you have that done, for everybody who you enter into that work path, from start to finish, that's what automation is all about, okay? Now, there is nuances in which we can explore, and Brian and I will, Chris and I will explore some of those through our conversation, but that's basically how it works, okay, with emails. But you can also do this with certain tools on your website as well. So if somebody comes to your website and they are an existing customer, and they sign in, you can tailor your messages to them as well. So personalization is a large part of automated marketing. So before you start generating emails, before you start executing on programs like this, there's a few things that you need to start thinking about. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris to talk about some of that.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Chris. I lead strategy at an agency called The Engine is Red. So we get to work with a wide swath of different industries, but the one that we secretly love the most is the wine industry. Being located here and in the Midwest, we get to work with a wide variety. So our teams get to support brand new, small, independent wineries. We work with great multi-generational family-owned wineries all the way up to the conglomerate kind of CPG powerhouses. And one of the most interesting things that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is that changes in technology, whether it's automated email, programmatic ad buying, digital, is leveling the playing field in a way that is just fundamentally different than anything we've seen before. The same tools that we're seeing at, unfortunately, from an NDA perspective, I have to kind of nickname some of our clients, so I apologize both if you recognize yourself in the story or if it's a little off. But some of the same exact tools that we're seeing at a 10,000 case winery that are driving significant sales lift are the exact same tools and approaches that some of the largest million case wineries are doing. So it's an interesting and kind of exciting unifying time for us. But we find from the marketing function, so a lot of our work, while we support sales in 3-tier, we do a lot on the demand, the DTC, and the kind of the brand side, is that it has become an overwhelming wave coming at the marketing department. So just as a kind of quick poll to level set on who's in the room, how many folks here wear the marketing hat inside their organization, even if you wear lots of other hats along the way? So we have a lot of marketers here. Keep your hands up if you've started to get asked about automated email marketing, digital marketing, social events. Is that a conversation that's happening in-house? And keep your hand up if you feel supported in all of that. Are you getting the tools and resources you need there? Yeah, it's exciting to see that a lot of you are, but a lot of us aren't. So I'm just going to share a little bit of advice on what we've seen and try to be helpful, but we'll have time to kind of address some of your specific things. One of the big pieces of advice we give marketers at wineries, regardless of size, is to ease into the digital technology and automation side slowly. There is a ton, I mean a literal ton of things that you could do. You'll walk the trade show floor today and you'll probably meet over a dozen vendors that can help you with everything from email subscriptions to pop-up boxes on your website, beacons in your tasting room, we get all the emails. There's tons of them. A lot of them are really, really good, but trying to do all of them is going to become overwhelming really fast. So you have time to start small, keep it simple, find what works for you, and ease into it. One of the dangerous things that I think guys like us can do to the industry is we get excited and we start talking about lots of stuff, and it creates all this hype and all this buzzwords from AR on labels to tracking and all of these different things. And it's great, but you don't have to do the next big thing right away. So the first piece of advice I'd share is take a look at where your winery is headed in terms of business goals. Are you looking to support a new region, a new distributor? Are you launching a new varietal? Are you expanding an event program, pushing towards DTC? But across your leadership team with the other departments, or if you're independent, your other tasks and hats that you personally have, and figure out the 1 or 2 business goals you have in 2020 that are going to be a priority winery-wide, and then go look at the specific tools that would support that. The tools that you would use to support retail pull-through is a very different set of tools than you would use to support events, which is different than membership. So take the first to figure out what's most important and start there and give yourself the breathing room to not tackle all those things at once.
So, I like to look at this in terms of Stephen Covey's 7th rule, and that is begin with the end in mind. And that is that, this is just another marketing tactic, and it is something that is certainly powerful, but it needs to fit in with your overall marketing goals. And you have to figure out how this is going to dovetail with the other things that you're doing, because frankly, this is not something that should exist in a vacuum. It is something that can be used to support other marketing programs and goals. So, and I would say that you should plan beyond just 2020. I would say that, you should have a 1, 3, and 5-year goal strategy set forth as to how this is going to work, because often enough times what happens is that people get really excited about the new shiny thing, and they're all gung-ho about it for the first couple months, and then they get distracted by something else, and it falls by the wayside, right? So having a strong strategy in place and being able to act on that will keep you on target and make it much more successful in the end.
Yeah, then along those lines, particularly on the email side, which I know is a bigger portion of today, just another quick poll, just so I don't want to go over basics if you guys already have it handled. For those of you that are exploring email automation, is that something that's exciting for you guys yet, or does it feel just kind of overwhelming? It's exciting. What's exciting about it for where you're at right now?
Who finds it exciting?
Yeah, you got it 100%. Yeah, that's exactly right. So particularly if you have a small marketing team compared to the goals of your company, automated marketing is robots that do your work for you, which is a weird way to think about it. In the old world, particularly if you've done anything on the membership side, writing, drafting, scheduling, and producing email blasts is a huge time suck. For some of the people that we work with, it's 30-40% of their jobs. And the downside of that is it's very finite. Everything's disposable. The reason why is that the communication is triggered by the winery, and then it's sent, and then it's over. So you have an event, you have a release, you have a shipment coming, you have a product manager that's asking for you just to send an email, and then you write it and you send it to everybody. When you switch to automated marketing, it is the consumer that triggers it. So you write the email once, and it gets sent every time the consumer needs it, requests it, or interested in it, and it's evergreen. Like you mentioned, a 6 welcome email. Right. So you have somebody that signs up on your website, you pick the first 6 messages. You introduce a wine club, you invite them to an event. You write all those emails once. For the next 3 years, everybody who signs up on your website gets all 6 of those emails, but you haven't written it at all. So it's a different way of thinking. And step 1 is just to get to that triggered email set. Later on, we can kind of teach you how to personalize those emails so that the wine that shows up in the email matches what they ordered last or an event that they attended. But you're dead on. The exciting part is it takes the amount of effort you do in marketing and amplifies it without taking more of your time, which can be a big lift.
I'm gonna tee up a softball for you. Because even though you can automate all of this, you still can't forget who's on the receiving end, right? First of all, you need to know who the audience is so that you need to craft the messages appropriately. But also, there's personalization and there's personal contact, right? So you work with a client right now who that's very important for, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to get a little soapboxy. So my background is on the creative side, and one of the dangers that we see, and we did have a client who spent all this money setting up a massively complex automation system, and it was beautiful, but it's easy to forget in lieu of all of this technology and data and parameters and triggers and personalization, that in the end, you're communicating with humans, that if your message is not creative, if it's not emotional, if it doesn't support your brand, arguably, if it's not beautiful or not well written, then it doesn't matter. So one of the things that we are kind of passionate about is as you take a look, whether it's on the email side, on your social, on your digital, you can't lose the heart of your brand just because you're using technology. There's a lot of smart tools out there, but if the customer feels like it was a smart tool, they'll just skip over it. Worse, if you end up in the uncanny valley where it doesn't feel like a smart tool, but it's not quite endearing, it'll come off as super creepy. You don't want to be like, hey, I saw you on my website 10 minutes ago. I've gotten that email.
I have too. Yeah.
So really, like first and foremost, as a marketer, your heart is to connect with other people on an endearing level. Don't lose that in the lens of technology. If anything, because of the creepy factor of it being automated, you have to be even more friendly and endearing and human, particularly if you get into like chat or the other things. Like that middle ground of where it feels cookie cutter but stocky is not a great brand builder. So through all of this,
don't let IT take over and lose the fact that you're communicating an emotional human story. And we're not selling medical devices. We sell amazing wine. We get to be an awesome part of our guests' lives. And that has to come first, even as you turn on all these technical tools on the back end.
Okay, now my soapbox. As long as you're not saying the same thing as everybody else. You know, that's my biggest pet peeve is when people say that they're family owned, they make wine in the vineyard, small production, handcrafted. Any more? I'm sure that there's, we can come up with dozens of them at the moment. Everybody's saying the same thing, right? So if you're if you're using automated marketing and you're still saying the same thing as everybody else, you're not standing out. So to Chris's point, that you need to be a little creative in what you're doing and think about, again, like, what's your overall strategy for this?
Yeah, and then another piece of advice that we typically give clients is email's deceiving. It's such a big part of our lives because of the way our POS systems work, and because it's a unifying thing that touches those on the website, on direct sales, it touches membership, it touches events. So it's this central focal point. Email alone is a pretty rough medium. I'm sure, you have a phone. What percentage of emails from companies do you read that's in your email box? My guess is it's well below 10%. It's just not a very effective medium. So when you're doing that goal-based approach, whether that's to keep wine club members active longer, or it's to convert people who have expressed interest but haven't signed up, or to sell or allocation, when you're taking a look at that, think beyond email. Just kind of a free pro tip that I'll throw out there. Geo-fenced programmatic ad buying is probably the greatest tool that small independent wineries have in their toolkit right now that they're not using.
To drive traffic.
To do anything. You could do amazing things. So, for instance, let's say that you have a 7,000 person email list and you're setting up unique, beautiful, timely emails. Exactly. You can also create a custom audience through a display network like Google or Facebook or Instagram. And those exact same people on their devices will see ads of the exact same message within the same time periods of the email. So if you're trying to get everybody to come to a harvest event, or you're trying to know that their allocation is available, email is one of those tools, but you can very simply, and for hundreds of dollars, not thousands, not tens of thousands of dollars, you could be also mirroring that exact message on YouTube, in their social, and on display. And to them, you're a national advertiser. You're right alongside all the other consumer brands, but you're only reaching those 7,000 specific people. So whether it's that or anything else, email is a great start, but you can't stop there. So many of your audiences just have a complete distaste for email. It's also not a very unifying consumer behavior. For instance, like in my family, I'm an inbox zero guy. Like, I sleep well at night when it is clear.
Yep.
My wife, I looked at her
happens.
phone the other day, over 1,300 unread emails. Stressed, like my hands are sweaty just talking about it. But if you're trying to reach her, she's not going to read your email. She doesn't read my email, and I'm married to her. So yeah, think beyond email. It's a great start, but you'll be pretty limited if that's all you do.
So let me ask everybody, who 100% knows who's buying your wine? Yeah. So that's a problem, isn't it? Like in most other businesses, we're going to have pretty clear understanding of who actually is their customer. Like, I know who my customer is as a marketing agency, right? But wineries don't know, have no idea who their customer actually is. But you know what? You guys have that information. It's in your database. You have a customer database. If you sell DTC, you have a customer database, right? You have names of everybody who's purchased your wine, okay? So that is one of the most underused resources that you have as a company. And by layering automated marketing on top of that, you should be able to highly target those individuals in your database and frankly increase the value that they present, right? When somebody buys something once from you, why? There's an opportunity there to figure that out. And there's also an opportunity to sell them again. It's a lot easier to sell people who've actually purchased from you previously than it is to go out and find a new customer. That's just the standard, right? So one of the things you can do to help with email marketing or with automated marketing is setting up what we call buyer personas, right? So a buyer persona is basically saying, okay, I have a group of customers and they all kind of exhibit the same characteristics. You need to know what those characteristics are. So one of the opportunities that this gives you is the ability to add information about your customers in a way that then you can market to them in a way that they are going to be wanted to be marketed to. You're going to have the information that they're interested in.
Not to throw you on the spot, but data can be a lot for me.
Yeah.
Will you break that down in an example? Like, what is a sample persona? How do you find that in the data? What does that look like?
Right.
With some specificity.
Sure. So, so let's say you've got a wine club member, and or let's say you have wine club members who have been with the wine club for more than 2 years. Okay, that's a valuable club member generally, because most club members don't last beyond 2 years. So if you have folks who have been 2 years in your club, you need to find out what they're about, right? So the easiest way to do that is to ask them, right? So if you haven't collected any kind of information on them previously, this is an opportunity for you to actually have a touch point with them and say, hey, you know, you've been a club member for a couple of years. We'd love to host you for something. Can we get a little information about you? So what that helps you do is build an individual customer persona for them, because you know that what they actually are, and hopefully you can build some behavioral pieces out of that. But the whole point is that you can group individuals like that together, and then when you are doing something like an email blast, those people get a special personalized message to them based on what their behavior is. Their buying behavior through you, right? And then the nice thing is that with automated marketing, you can actually send out the same email to everybody in your database, and if you have actually indicated that these are different personas, those different personas will get a different message from you, even though it's the same email, right? Because all you need to do is tailor the message a little bit, like maybe a paragraph in the message. So I don't know about you, but I like that personal touch. I like to, when people call me by name, when they show an interest in what I'm about, that they actually recognize that I have a particular behavior. Those are ways of getting my attention, and that's a way for you to get attentions of other customers.
Yeah, and in a minute we're gonna open it. Oh, do you guys already have them? Sweet. No, don't wait.
Yeah, come on. Sure. So the question is like, you know, how do you do this, and like what technologies should we employ to do this? So there's a lot of different technologies out there, and so if you search for marketing automation, you'll come up with a bunch. I will give you a few possibilities, but there are many more out there. So something is if you're just getting started with it, and you don't necessarily want to invest a ton of money into it, then going with something like MailChimp or Aweber, which are email marketing tools. They have some of the capabilities for automated marketing, for marketing automation. Beyond that, if you want to get a little more powerful than that, there are tools like HubSpot and SharpSpring and Marketo. So those are kind of the three leading marketing automation platforms.
Yeah, as you're considering a platform, there's just a couple of factors that are probably going to drive your decision. One, where does most of your data currently live? And for those of us in the wine world, it's in our POS.
Or in a spreadsheet.
Right. So within that, without opening that can of worms, there's some limited functionality in the wine POS world. I think we've all had those frustrations. Depending on which one you're on, they all have their challenges. So as you get more into automated marketing, the closer your email program is to your core data set, the more info you'll have to work with. So your best case scenario is that the same program you're using for events and POS and for membership has some form of automation functionality in it. Candidly, 2 or 3 of them do it okay. 2 or 3 of them do it horribly. So you'll have to take a look at where your data is and what it looks like. If you're just getting started and you have a POS that has some marketing automation functionality in it, that's where I'd start. It's a learning curve that's easier for you to get going on. You can build a data case before you migrate over. As soon as you have a separate platform, you have to build a bridge between the core data and your email, which is totally doable and at scale is completely worth it when you get the better functionality. But if you're just starting out, that bridge alone can be so cumbersome that you give up. So check with where your data is now. A couple of them, and we won't because I'm sure some of them are sponsors and some aren't, and I'll offend somebody. Call your rep,
Not naming
check
names.
it, make sure that they show you how it works and not just say that it's in there because it's not always there. And then the second thing you'll think about is what platforms your automation software touches. I'll second vote for MailChimp. I think for most independent marketing departments, it is the most intuitive, easy to use, defaults to pretty. They have a really good learning center on the site where you can learn a lot more than we could ever share in an hour. It is limited. It's not going to give you the level of sophistication that some of the platforms like Brian has, and it's not going to touch tons of other things. When you get into bigger stuff like Marketo, what's nice about it is it leaves email. At that level of automation, it's changing the way that your homepage looks based on who they are. So all of a sudden, your homepage is showcasing the wines that you know that they've bought, or a homepage for somebody that's within driving distance of your tasting room is different than somebody who's a fly-in market or a member versus a not. So the bigger ones are great because it's not just email automation, it's social, it's digital, it's SMS text messaging, it's advertising, it's your website, which is great, but if you're not going to use all of that in the beginning, start with something a little bit simple.
Agreed. So, and then we've actually made an assumption here that I think that we need to actually address, and that is regarding where your database is, right? So, like I said, if you're a small producer, often at times it's going to be in a spreadsheet or it's going to be in your digital marketing platform, DTC platform, POS, whatever you're using for selling wine. Unfortunately, those things are limited in their functionality in terms of what kind of information you can gather and record for your customers. So you need to first actually consider the CRM, the customer relationship management, right? So you have a relationship with each of your customers. So a CRM system is going to actually be able to help you maintain a more comprehensive view of each of those customers, much more so than a spreadsheet or even a POS system can. Some of the platforms we've just discussed have CRM systems in place. So they basically give you a CRM system for free if you use their platform for marketing automation. But it's also important that if you do go down the route of a CRM system, that you need to make sure that you not only can you put your data into that system, but that you can actually get the data out of that system, because often at times you're going to outgrow what you started with, or you may find that it doesn't have the functionality that you want, so you're going to have to be able to get the data out of a CRM system and into another system. So when you are considering investing in that, you need to make sure that you have an idea of like, how do I get out of it as well?
Yeah, and then the next big things that we see for people that are just starting is, okay, now you've picked a platform. Where do you start? What do you start creating? The two areas that I would encourage you to consider as you're kind of plotting your course is, one, what are individually timed events that all of your customers have? So the two that we typically see there would be that I just purchased. I logged online and I purchased from you. That's something that all our customers will do, but we all do it at different times and different days. That is a great time to create an automated system. Start with just 2 or 3, but if you had a chance to personally call somebody 2 days after they purchased, what would you tell them? What would you ask them? What would you make sure? If you could follow up 10 days later, are you calling to see how they liked it? Are you giving them advice on how to pair it? Are you letting them know that there's more available? Sorry, I'll take a step back and try not to tangent too far. The easiest way to find big opportunities in automated marketing, particularly email, is if you had the time to be a personal shopper concierge for your guests, what would you tell them and when? Do you call them 10 days before their birthday? Do you follow up with them after an order? Like, if you had the time and the bandwidth to be a personal shopper concierge, what are the things that you're doing? If you have a tasting room and they've reserved something, are you following up the day after to give them advice on where to eat? Is it 3 days ahead of time and you're letting them know about the weather or where to park? But if you had the time to be on the phone and personally take care of them, when would you talk to them and what would you say? And any of those transactions you're trying to do, you can do in the email ahead of time. But that's probably a good. So what are the things that happen to us individually, but all of our customers have? Holidays are one, birthdays, purchases, visits, signing up on the website. Any of those things can be a good one. And then if you had a chance to be a personal shopper, what would that behavior look like? And then where would you lay that in?
I'm totally stealing that one. That's great advice. So I think if you're okay with it, you want to throw it out to questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge topic. It's kind of hard for us to figure out what to share. So it'd be great to hear from you guys.
Yeah,
what are you dealing
absolutely.
with, inspired by, challenged on? Yeah.
I was just curious if you have ever used drip campaigns, and were they successful?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things we're basically talking about here, right? Is that that like kind of six emails we talked about earlier today? That's really a drip campaign.
Yeah, we use drip campaigns a lot. They are successful. I think the success of a drip campaign typically comes down to the creative. Sending frequent emails is annoying unless it's delightful, which is a really high bar as a marketer, that if you're not delightful, they kind of hate it. So drip campaigns, I think, for sure work, particularly assume that they're not reading half of them. So you think 6 is a lot. They probably only realized you did it 2 or 3 times. Right. I would say that like the small little pro tip on something like a 6-series drip campaign, it's the subject line. If your subject line isn't interesting or offensive or funny or scary, depending on what you're selling, I guess we're wine, so we'll not be scary, then it doesn't matter. Like, it just, if your product is in the subject line, you've screwed up. It's just not interesting to them. They don't need to see a vintage number inside the subject line. So yeah, if you're doing a drip campaign, I'd spend most of your creative on the subject line, because if you don't win that, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like holiday sale. That's not going to get my attention. Yeah, swipe right.
And
We've got some data on drip campaigns that I agree with all of these, except one of the top performers is just your automated receipt. If you put a basic sales offer at the bottom of your receipt, you'll get 30 times more revenue compared to a normal blast, right? So it doesn't have to, and like, will people open? Yeah, it's a receipt. All right, so do that. I would do that first. You don't even have to have an automated system to do that, right? You can probably go to your POS and put something in, right? That's a drip campaign too.
Yeah. Yeah, endearing can be anything. Gratitude comes off as endearing, to say thank you to them, particularly if you're saying thank you to them for something besides money. So thank you for being a part of the family, etc. I would say that human stories come off as endearing to highlight your team and the people that are there, particularly if you go beyond the winemaker or the owner. Oh, here's another like side tangent. We're very weird as California wine drinkers out here, where we drink wine weirder than anybody on the globe in the way that we talk about it and function. There's a term here that we use a lot called family owned, which to us means we're not a huge corporation. In Tennessee, it just makes you seem rich. They don't care that your family owns a winery at all. So when you're talking about being endearing and showing people stories, more than the rich people stories, if we can be candid there, so more than the people whose names on the label. Other things that are endearing is anything that's about them. If you just have a simple happy birthday message, or hey, it's been a year since you saw us, we loved you, or thanks for visiting, where the message, content, and trigger is about the guest and has absolutely nothing to do with you, particularly if it's creative, and I don't want to go all the way to cute because depending on your brand, but the more audience-centric it is, the less brand-centric it is, the more endearing it will be.
Yeah, put their name in the subject line.
Only if you spell it right.
Yeah.
And if I may add, if you're talking to people, if you are sending out information, newsletters, anything like that, put your name in there somewhere. People relate to you if you write your name, and I see so many that say, we're doing this, and we're doing that, and we're going to have this, and it's like, who are you? You know who I am. Make sure I know who you are.
What else? I saw some other hands
point.
prior to that.
That never happens. Hi, your name. We saw that you visited us on date.
Yeah, so from that, I would give you two pieces of advice. One, you need to have a test list. I typically request a test list that is employees and then kind of friends and family. So sometimes things trigger weird by IP address. So if you only send it to people inside your company, they might have it slightly differently. So ask your mom or your brother or your neighbor to kind of do that. And definitely when you first set up an automation, rig that list to trigger it. So if you're doing a birthday email, make sure everybody's birthday in the data file is within the first week so it kind of triggers on time. And then the second thing I would do is make sure that you have a small group that is what we would call a seed list, which is a dozen or so people that should show up and trigger on everything you do that are a part of your team, so that you're keeping an eye on what's out there. If you ever do direct mail, use the same technique so that you know what day it came in home. But yeah, use some fake personas to make sure that you're getting all those emails and you can kind of check it. The other thing that you can always do too is just make sure that your footer is human. Don't hide your unsubscribe or feedback request. Trying to prevent somebody from unsubscribing that wants to unsubscribe is awful. Like, it doesn't help. I think there's this myth in our world that like the larger your list, the better you're doing. That's completely wrong. You want the smallest list possible of interested people. A big list of uninterested people is damaging your brand, and then it'll like make your performance numbers look really, really bad.
Yeah, it just introduces dirty data.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if somebody wants to unsubscribe and you don't let them unsubscribe, all they're going to do is block you. So their email is still in your system, and you're still sending them stuff, but it's their dirty data because they're not actually paying attention to it. So
Never send an email out that hasn't been tested, okay? It's always best to run a test.
Oh, and one last small tip on the testing side. Dial the phone number before you press send. You'd be shocked how many of us typo our own phone numbers. So just as a quick, dial the phone number, make sure it's actually the right one.
what else? I saw somebody over here raise their hand right there. Yeah. No, but I mean, we're actually going to use some of those platforms ourselves to set things up. I'm not a software engineer, right? So I'm not actually going to set up a system that's going to do this. I'm going to use an existing system, but we would, like for instance, we're a SharpSpring partner. We like SharpSpring because it's a little less expensive than HubSpot and definitely less expensive than Marketo. And it gives us a nice entry point into things. And by being a partner, you're also getting, all of our expertise in how to set things up and training and all that sort of thing, rather than going directly to the source.
Yeah, I would say the same. So you'll have two different types of agencies. Agencies that have software that they're either licensing or that they proprietary own, and then they'll help you set it up. The nice thing about that is their service costs are typically lower. The downside is you're locked into that one specific tool, but there are lots of good options. Creative agencies like ours are going to help you identify a platform or use your own, and then we'll help you implement it, but you own the software, not us. But yeah, getting an agency particularly to help you get started, or a consultant, depending on your size. Yeah. An individual consultant can be a great way to start. Some of our clients will have us build their first few automation strings, and then they kind of reverse engineer it and build a few on their own, and then we kind of share that back and forth. But yeah, particularly if any of that CRM data language was really intimidating, just get a consultant or an agency to help you get that piece done, and then it'll feel a little bit more fluid. Anything else we can help you guys out with? Otherwise, we can let you go a little early.
It's all right.
Yeah. So the Consumer Privacy Act, if that doesn't feel familiar to you, or GDPR, it really comes down to consent and permission, which makes total sense when you say it. You as a marketer have the ability to collect and utilize a tremendous amount of data about your consumers. All the California Privacy Act is doing is that you ask them their permission and consent to do that. That sounds scary, but it's not. It's scary if your goal is the largest email list ever, but your goal isn't, right? You want to customize things only to people who want to receive them. So it is about asking consent. So when you're landing on your site, you're going to have to let them know that you're using things like cookies to track their behavior. When you collect their email address, you have to let them know how you're going to use it. That's not a scary thing. The only advice I would give is to be human about it. Tell them why you're doing it. Hey, I don't want to send you emails that you're not interested in. Do you mind letting me know what you're interested in? That's also a great way to get somebody to give you more information for your data. Let me know what kind of wine you like, when your birthday is. Do you do holiday gift shopping? But tell them why you're doing it in an empathetic way, and you'll be safe there.
Yeah. So, and GDPR, and that's that little pop-up that you might get on a website when you visit, and it says, this site uses cookies. Do you accept that? Were you doing that? And you hit accept. That's that GDPR consent. It was out of the EU that they basically said, you can't collect data on people if they don't know that you're collecting data on them, and that's the reason for that.
In California, it's nearly identical.
Yeah, it's the standard, the GDPR standard is high enough that you can follow that.
And luckily, over the last year, I think most consumers have seen that pop up over and over on the web, so they're expecting it from you versus it being kind of scary. Yeah, anything else? Last question or two?
Right.
Feels confusing. Yeah, I can give you the ideal answer and then the real answer. The ideal answer is that your data is centralized and logged.
And that the people who are doing the sales or the actions that are going to cause you to come off of that path know that's going to happen.
But that's not going to happen, right? It can, you should, it's worth fighting for, particularly if you have a DTC team or membership team that calls people. You would love for them to log that in. That's really easy if the central data CRM that fuels your automation is the same one that's generating their call lists. That can be great. The other thing that you can do is remove audiences. So if you know that you have a swath of salespeople that are going to be calling on members the month of December, you can turn all of your membership off of automated email until January and just baby with the bathwater, prevent it. Because it can happen. Like if I have a phone call with somebody from your winery on Monday, and then I get we haven't heard from you for a while email on Wednesday, we've clearly showed them that we're not talking to each other internally, and it looks weird. So there's other ways to do it. I would say the more personalized you're getting, be more careful about the overlap. Generic, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, don't forget to gift. The Chardonnay you love, the new vintage just came out. That's a little less risky because it's not so specific. Particularly if you have a negative customer experience, like somebody's called to complain.
Right.
They need to log that.
Yeah. Well, and basically, with the more powerful automation tools that we've discussed, one of the things you can do is set up a action flow chart. So basically, what it is as they're on this path, if it's a drip campaign, if they take any action during that time, or you take an action on their behalf, they come off of that path and they go onto a different path. Okay, so when we're laying this out, it looks like just like a big org chart, where basically it's like if they do this, then that. So it's a big kind of programming thing, but once you get it all kind of nailed down, it's really powerful. So basically, like if they click on something in an email that you sent, you're not going to keep them on the drip path. You're going to take them off to another thing because they've already expressed interest, and then you're basically on a different campaign path now.
Yeah, a good example of that is if you're selling something through your drip campaign, as soon as somebody buys, stop emailing them.
Yeah.
Or
they go onto a different email track, right? So that now they go from prospect to customer. And even if they're a customer, you can also have if they purchase again, then they go into a different track, right? Maybe it's not necessarily that they're getting emails from you now, but basically it says, notify this salesperson that person just bought 2 cases of Cabernet and needs to follow up with them, right? So that's one of the most powerful things you can do with email marketing or with automated marketing.
Should we end with the biggest mistakes we see?
I don't know. We don't have enough time. Oh, no, we do. We have 3 minutes. Okay, good.
I'll throw out the first one. The biggest mistake that I see in email marketing, automated or not, is the desire to write paragraphs. Whoever came up with the term newsletter sucks. Nobody wants to read 7 different articles in a whole email. So if you've hit a hard return for the 3rd time in the same email, you've gone too far. Think postcard
not letter, not newspaper. When you're sending emails, you can be a lot more visual than you think. You can say tremendously less than you think you can. You can still use a headline and a subhead. But I would say the biggest mistake we see in email is the desire to write just long prose that you know nobody's going to read.
Yeah, forgetting to put a call to action. If you're sending them an email, you're wanting them to do something, right? So don't forget to put your call to action in your emails.
I have one that people do, and that is keep your hospitality staff involved in what you're trying to accomplish through your emails. And your hospitality staff are the recipients of more personal information from your customers than probably anybody else in your winery.
And they're the lowest paid.
And then I was going to say, provide some incentives for them to gather information for you and then pass it along. Because it's amazing what you can find out. Because people want to talk to you. They want to be your friend. And so they'll tell you anything.
Well, absolutely. They want to feel like they're a part of the family, and giving them a peek behind the curtain, any of that, that's gonna help you solidify that customer relationship.
Is that it, E?
That's it. I would like to thank you all I'm going to try and get down off this chair. There we go. You should see me trying to get off of here. I'm going to thank you all for coming today. I'm hoping you're going to go to other sessions that we're presenting for you and make sure you hit the exhibit hall and have a great time and enjoy yourself and pick up as much information as you can for your own success. Thank you very much. And I thank our panel. They've been fantastic.